Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first virtual workshop. Today, we will be going over the college application process. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Ms. Morgan. I'm one of the 6 advisors on the college advising team, serving KC Scholars awardees. So, just to give you a quick agenda about what we're going to cover in today's workshop, we're going to discuss parts of the college application, admissions types, and then also admissions decisions. So it's super important to be aware that the college application process is more than just the application. There are many different components and factors that you have to include in an application. So it's more than just going online and filling out an application. There are just so many individual parts that are key to making a application whole and complete. And so today I'm gonna go into each one of these sections individually. So first up is the application form. So there are multiple ways that you can apply to college. First being the college's online application. Almost every institution, if you go on their website, you can see a big sign that says apply, and you go ahead and apply online. There's also what's called the common application. So this is basically where you can apply to multiple schools at once. In the KC Scholars Post-Secondary Network, there are a few institutions that are using the common application. So if you are applying to, say you're applying to some schools within the KC Scholars Network, and maybe you're applying to some other institutions outside of the network, they may all use the common application, and it may be best for you to use the Common App. However, it varies from student to student and the institutions they are applying to. Next up is the Coalition application, which is fairly similar to the Common App. And then there's a Common Black College application, which is essentially for historically Black colleges and colleges and universities. There are many that use the Common Black College application that you may decide that you want to use if you're planning on applying to multiple HBCUs. So when it comes to college applications, there are also college application fees. So those amounts may vary. It depends on the college or university. Oftentimes they're non-refundable. However, just be aware that you may be eligible for an application fee waiver. So make sure that you're getting in contact with your college advisor or your high school counselor to see if you qualify for an application fee waiver, because if that is the case, then they can help you get that application fee waived, which can be super helpful because the cost of college application can be fairly expensive and can add up very quickly. Next up, ACT or SAT scores. So most colleges require that you send your scores directly either from ACT or SAT. However, there are some schools that will accept them off of your official high school transcript. Again, this can vary from institution to institution. So again, make sure that you are reaching out directly to the college that you're interested in or colleges and ask them how they would like to receive your ACT or SAT scores. Be sure that you send your scores to all the colleges that you are planning on applying to every time you test. If you have never registered for the ACT before, there is a section during the registration process that you will list what colleges you want your scores to be sent to. Make sure that you are listing all the colleges that you're planning on applying to so that you can make sure that they get those scores. Some colleges may super score your test scores, which essentially means that they will take, each time you test, they will take the highest of the sub scores to create a new composite score. This can work out in your benefit because it can help you get a higher composite score than if you were to take the test one time, and which can be really beneficial for either scholarships or even for admissions purposes if you don't meet the ACT requirement for a certain college. Next, if you want to send your scores to more than 4 colleges or organizations, after your test date, you will be charged $13 per college. So that's why it's super important that when you do register that you are making sure you're adding all of your schools. However, if you do qualify for an ACT or SAT waiver, you can send your scores to more than 4 colleges. Next up, the December ACT is usually the last test date that most colleges will accept. Mainly, this is because of financial aid and scholarship reasons, and so they have to have a cutoff. So you want to make sure that you are taking the exam before the December date if you can, and you also want to make sure you're taking it multiple times before that. So I highly encourage students to make sure they're taking it early in the fall or in the spring of their junior year, just so that you can make sure that you have ample enough time to take it, and so that you can give yourself enough time to make sure that you get the highest score possible. With this current fall of 2020, many colleges and universities are going test optional, which basically means that you can include your test scores or you don't. However, most of them are still requiring ACT or SAT scores for scholarship reasons. So most likely you're still going to have to take the ACT or SAT, if not for admissions, so that you can qualify for scholarships from the institution. Next up, there are other parts of the application, being one, the high school transcript. This is essentially a record of all the classes that you've taken and the grades that you've received in each class. And this just kind of helps the college know that to see that you have taken college level coursework. There are some states that have like a certain requirement that you need for public institutions. For example, Kansas at one point did, but they have recently gone away with that. And so most state institutions in the state of Kansas are just using the high school's graduation requirements for students. But again, it varies from institution to institution. Some schools may say you need to have this many years of math or this many years of English. Or maybe some schools will say you need to take a foreign language. Again, make sure you're checking with each institution to make sure that you're having the correct coursework that you need to apply. Make sure you're checking with your school about the policy for the cost of transcripts / the submission protocol. It can vary from high school to high school. So sometimes your high school may have a high school registrar, and that registrar handles all transcripts, and so they will be the ones to send your transcripts off to colleges. And you just need to just check in. Usually your high school counselor can tell you specifically what that process looks like. So make sure you're checking with them so that you know how that process works. Next up, you want to make sure that you review your transcript before submitting it. Sometimes things happen. Maybe you took a class in summer school and for some reason that course or that grade did not end up on your transcript for some reason. Make sure you're taking a look at it. And if you see any issues or discrepancies with your transcript, that you're reaching out to your counselor to get that addressed. Next up, they usually have to be what's quote unquote official, which basically means that it needs to come directly from your high school, so from your counselor or registrar, and not from you. So that can be in a sealed envelope, or it can be done electronically, which is the way that most people are doing it now. Next up are essays and personal statements. So basically, some colleges require an essay or a personal statement as a part of the application. This is a really great way for you to highlight your story, your strengths, and all of these things, and it can really make or break your application, and can really be a deciding factor for many institutions, especially if they have similar candidates. So say it's you and another student who have maybe the same ACT score and the same GPA, your essay or your personal statement could really help you stand out of the pack and could make an institution say, I want to go with you instead of another student. So that's why you want to make sure that your essays are drafted well and that you are giving yourself more than enough time to do revisions and edits, so that you can make sure that by the time you submit it, that it's a strong essay or personal statement that you are happy with. And so again, make sure you're giving yourself more than enough time to work through the kind of essay and personal statement process time. So next up are letters of recommendation. This again can vary from institution, but some schools do require them. So make sure that you are asking your recommenders well in advance of the deadline. Oftentimes you'll ask teachers, school counselors, sometimes coaches, or other adults in your life that know you well to write a letter that essentially can give a nice summary of your achievements or goals, and they can explain to this college why you would be a great fit to go to their institution. I'm going to reiterate the point of asking well in advance. Oftentimes, especially for teachers or school counselors, they are getting asked by many other students as well to write letters of recommendation. And so sometimes they will have a policy in place to say, you need to, let me know that you need a recommendation at least 2 weeks in advance. I oftentimes in the fall during college application season will encourage students to even ask even a month out, because it can be just a hectic time for high school counselors and teachers to be writing letters of recommendation. So you want to make sure that they have time so that they can really sit down and give you a thorough letter that they've thought through and gave time and dedication to. So it's super important that if you are going to do letters of recommendation, that you're just giving your recommenders the time that they need to be able to write about you in a great way and not feel like they have been rushed through the process. So next up, interviews. So these are often not required, but if an interview is optional, you should definitely take it. It's a great way for you to show an institution that you're serious about them, but it's also a great opportunity for you as well to connect with someone at the institution, especially if it's a larger institution and, it's a lot of people. It's really nice to be able to put a name to the face. Next up, portfolios. So if you're applying to an art program like the Kansas City Art Institute, they require a portfolio, and it's essentially for them to see samples of your work. And just so that you can kind of demonstrate your artistic ability. This could also happen if you're like applying to like photography programs, for example, too. They may want to see some pictures of your work as well. Next up, auditions. And so this is for if you are interested in applying to any kind of performing arts program, so music, dance, or theater. It can really vary to kind of how the audition takes place. It may happen in person. So some of the like larger performing arts schools sometimes will have audition dates in major cities across the country, and you will, travel to. If you don't live close by, you will obviously travel to where that audition will take place, or you may have to videotape it and then just submit it online. During this COVID time, that's what a lot of schools are doing. However, that process can change. So make sure that you are, clearly understanding like what an audition process will look like for a specific program. So just some college application do's and don'ts. First up, for do's, make sure you're reading the directions carefully. You definitely don't want to miss out on anything because you didn't read it. Make sure you're meeting deadlines. For most institutions, it's not November or December 1, but it can be later depending on the type of college that you're applying to. Next up, edit, edit, edit. You are going to be looking at this application for quite a while. You definitely want to make sure you have another set of eyes to look at it, because it can just, after you've been looking at something for a bit of time, it can just be you've been looking at it for a while. So definitely get another set of eyes to take a look at it. Make sure you're staying organized. The college application process is fairly complex, as you have probably already gathered just from the short bit that I have talked about here. There's a lot of moving pieces to it, and so you definitely want to make sure that you are having some sort of organization system, whether that be a spreadsheet, or maybe you're keeping track of your things in your like notes app. Just make sure you have some organization system in place as you're kind of navigating your college applications. And then do be honest on your application. You do not want to lie by any means, because if you do falsify information on a college application, it could impact your admissions decision. So for don't forget parts of your application. Most institutions will not take a look at a college application until it's complete. So you want to make sure that you have all the parts submitted so that your institution can review it and give you an admissions decision as soon as possible. Don't assume that you can't afford a school. So make sure you're having a conversation with your college advisor or your high school counselor, so that you're working through that, and so that don't feel like because you see the quote unquote sticker prices, I like to say, that it's completely out of your range and out of your ballpark. Make sure you're having a conversation, and don't let that stop you from applying to an institution. Again, like I said, be honest, don't make things up. And then lastly, don't let someone else fill out your application. So maybe in the past you've had, your parents fill out applications for you, but when you're applying to college, you're a senior in high school. This is at that point you should really be taking ownership of your college applications and doing them yourself. So lastly, we're going to talk about admissions types and decisions. First up for admissions types is guaranteed admissions. This is common with most public state colleges and universities. Essentially, they accept all students who meet the admissions criteria. You still have to actually apply. So even if you meet the criteria, they don't just like find you and say you got accepted. You still need to go about the process of applying online or using the Common App. Also, there is rolling admission. So this essentially is you apply when possible, and usually you receive a decision within 3 weeks of applying. This is very common in public state colleges and universities, and also in many private colleges as well. This essentially means that they will roll through the application and admissions process will roll through the school's determined cycle, or when they meet their admissions or / application targets. So say for example, you apply to a college now in the the fall. They sometimes, for many schools, they will let you do a rolling admissions, and they're usually accepting applications until a certain cutoff, which oftentimes is into the summer. And then their next up is regular admissions, and this essentially is that you apply. All students apply by a certain date and then receive a decision at the same time. This is common with private institutions and really selective institutions. So say, for example, they'll say the application deadline is December 1, and that they will be releasing all of their decisions on February 1. Again, this is common for those really selective institutions and for a specific type of institution and an application type, which I'm going to discuss here in a minute. And then lastly, there's open admission. So basically, all students that apply get in. This is essentially, and this is done on a rolling basis. Open admission is common and used at almost every community college. So next up, for application types, there's early action, which essentially is that you apply from September through December, and then you receive an acceptance decision before January. This is not binding, so you can apply to other schools, and then usually you have till May 1 to make a formal acceptance. Next up is restrictive early action, which has a similar acceptance timeline to early action. It's non-binding. However, you cannot apply to other schools during the evaluation period, so you have to essentially wait till you hear back to be able to apply to other schools. And then lastly is early decision. So you apply in November, and then you receive your acceptance decision or some type of admissions decision in December. With early decision, you can only apply to one college. It is binding. So however, if you get accepted to the institution, you must attend. So this is common with really highly prestigious institutions, those very selective schools like Princeton, Harvard, Yale. If you are in other institutions as well, so if you are planning on doing an early decision, you really have to know that you really like that school and that's where you want to attend, because if you get in, you're going to have to go. So make sure if you are wanting to apply early decision that you're kind of having a conversation with your family and also with your college advisor as well, to see if early decision would be kind of the best route for you to go, or if you should apply, early action if that's an option, or regular decision. So just to talk about admissions decisions. So first up is conditional admissions. And so a student, essentially you can be accepted, but your acceptance is tied to certain conditions. So maybe, for example, you will have to complete a summer course or maybe do like a summer bridge program. A lot of institutions offer summer bridge programs, which are usually about a month. You usually stay on campus, you'll take courses, and then that can kind of count for that condition. Or you may have a GPA requirement for your first semester or for your first year. So they may say you need to get a 2.5 or 2.75 or 3.0 for you to be able to stay at the institution. And then an institution may decide that they want to review your 8th semester transcript, so they want to wait until you finish high school, look at your transcript, and then make a decision. Next up is deferred. This is common with early decision and early action applicants. Essentially, your application will be reconsidered and a decision will be rendered at a later date. Sometimes more information may be required for the institution to be able to make a decision. But sometimes the institution may not tell you why you got deferred, unfortunately. So next up will be denied. Occasionally, denials will be accompanied with some items that you as a student can do to improve further consideration. Denials can be appealed. So that is super important to be aware of, is that if you get denied from an institution, you can go through their appeals process. It kind of looks different depending on the school. Some colleges may say, hey, if you retake the ACT, you can go ahead and go through the denial process. Oftentimes, students may be denied, especially at like public institutions, because they maybe didn't meet the ACT requirements, or the test score requirements. So definitely make sure that if you get denied from school and you are really interested in attending, that you go through that appeals process. And your college advisor can be super helpful and help you go through that process. Next up is provisional. So you're accepted as long as you continue to perform throughout your senior year. It's super important to be aware that if just because you finish your college applications, that does not give you the ability to just go slack off. You should continue to maintain your grades and do well throughout your senior year until you graduate. And sometimes with provisional, full acceptance could be subject to certain conditions. Lastly, there's waitlisted, and then essentially this means that you're not initially accepted based on the admissions profile. Sometimes new information, in most cases, will not make a difference. So at this point, if you are waitlisted for institution, you should really start considering plans B, C, D, E. You consider all your options, because there's sometimes a strong likelihood, especially if you applied early decision or early action, that you may not get off that wait list, and oftentimes universities will not tell you where you are on the wait list. So if you become waitlisted at a school, that is a time to have a conversation with your college advisor about, okay, I got waitlisted, what about the options? Because you may not get off that list, and so you don't want to, again, sit around and wait. You want to make sure that you have some options as a backup if you get waitlisted. So this is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this virtual workshop. But before you leave and go and click out of this, make sure that you are getting out your phone and opening up your camera and hovering over this QR code to go ahead and complete a short survey. This survey one will give us some feedback about how you like this, this presentation, this workshop. And also it's some participation data. So our college advisor, your specific college advisor may reach out to you after seeing that you've completed the survey, see if you have any questions, because this is a recorded session. And so unfortunately I can't take questions right now. So if you have specific questions, your college advisor will be someone that you can go out and reach out to, or they may reach out to you. So go ahead and take this quick survey. It'll take like 2 minutes. And thank you so much for watching this workshop again. And I hope that you found this to be informational and that you got something out of it. And again, if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your college advisor. And if you aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you can get all the notifications for when we are uploading videos. And make sure you check out the other videos on our channel. We have a few about Canvas, about registering for the ACT. So there's a bunch of tutorials and information out there on our channel. So hopefully you go ahead and take a look. But thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.